Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Ramosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello, everyone. Tonight on the Lost Signals is reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm Jonathan Ian Manser, here with Chris Morgan.
Good evening.
And Scott Thurlow.
And I made it to 65 feet tall once.
Indeed, you did. It was a tragedy.
It was glorious.
So, Scott, would you like to start us off with the final log line?
Yeah, so this might come into play later, but we came up with, we're going to get them in, boys. Boss Hog style. From Dukes of Hazzard, if anyone gets that reference.
Very pertinent to the film. So I'm going to start off with the plot. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Old Man and the Pena, go on an adventure where the MacGuffin is a tiny building suitcase with a quantum
tunnel contraption
teleporter thing.
Yeah.
The Pym boys are go after it along, as well as the FBI, a Southern gentleman and his cartel. And,
he's a black arms dealer, a black market dealer.
And a restaurateur.
Sure.
And a phase-shifting ghostly woman, along with Lawrence Fishburne, as all on a chase. They make things big, turn them small, and once again we find that the sequel can carry this premise.
And quantum.
Yes.
So overall I'm going to give it a 2 because it's really a chase film. It reminded me a lot of a 1960s television show with all of these different groups like going after the same item, and I mean, like, there's a lot of, it's all style. I would argue little substance, but style holds up for it.
Well, not little, but certainly style over substance. Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah, I was looking at maybe a solid-ish 2, because you're right. Like, the first Ant-Man was sort of a heist film, pretty much. This one is more of like a MacGuffin chase, as you just laid out. Like, and that's fine. It's not to be a pun or anything, but it's a smaller scale story, and that works pretty damn well, right? Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think it deserves a 3, but for what it is, it carries it along real nicely. And I will say, in terms of pacing, it seemed like to kind of fly by, but in a good way. So it's pretty much exactly 2 hours, and I think that was, again, a well done length, like versus like Infinity War or something like that, where it's like longer. Wait, I get it, but for this one, perfectly fine. I really have no complaints. Maybe some small nitpicks for the plot, but overall, I don't think it's perfect, but I think 2 is a good score. What do you think, Chris?
I'm actually going to give it a 3.
Okay.
Because it's a mad MacGuffin. And
that's a really good logline.
I should have thought of that. Yeah. But Scott, you nailed it when you said, and again, no pun intended, it's a smaller scale film. And when it comes to these Marvel films, the ones I enjoy the best are the ones that are like personal stories. Mm-hmm. Winter Soldier, Black Panther, Homecoming, the first Ant-Man, first Iron Man, things of that nature. I find much more interesting. And again, it was a chase film, and usually car chases are probably one of the most boring things. But again, I felt that they
mix it up because of the premise. You can do some clever stuff.
Once again, I think they used the premise really well.
I agree.
And again, it's like a lot of these films. The Homecoming is a coming of age film. Winter Soldier is a Cold War espionage, and Black Panther is a family drama. The thing is, it's a burger. That you can go to McDonald's and get a burger, or you can go to some place and get a really good burger.
You go to a Big Kahuna Burger and get one tasty burger.
Exactly. You can get one tasty burger. But this is a burger that's done really well. There's nothing new under the sun. But what they did, I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I have any complaint, it's just that we have a villain. It is a villain. Hi, this is your arms dealer for this film.
In a second, but I do agree.
And this is where it comes into. It feels like a very good finale, a 2-part finale to a TV show.
Yes.
Where it felt very much smaller scale, maybe to its overall detriment. And perhaps I'm coming in after watching Thanos and the high stakes.
Sure. It unfortunately had to follow that up, sure, but
This was very harmless. It's a very harmless movie. Most of the villains in this, as we'll get to, I never felt like either was sympathetic towards them or they felt kind of cartoonishly like
they felt comic booky in like a bad way, like not like a good way adaptation.
But it's good for this film.
Yes, it
Yeah.
works.
It's not good for there being any stakes involved with this.
Yeah, no, that's well said.
If this were any other film, if this film took itself like seriously, like if they tried to put this in the tone of a Winter Soldier, it wouldn't have worked.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, we're going with 2. It looks like Chris, you're going with 3 for plot. And
Yep.
Yeah, but still damn solid is all we're saying.
And to keep to our old thing, where did I ever lose my immersion? No, I never broke immersion. I was
invested the whole time.
Yeah.
They never lost me. Sure.
I think because of the character work, which we'll get into eventually. But no, Scott, would you like to talk about themes, if there are
I'll
any?
try to. I think so yeah, precast, we were just saying, like, listen, because of the nature of it, it's a fun and funny romp. It's got some good guys, it's got some good bits, and a fine overall plot, as we just said. But there's not really, like, a message to it, per se. And you just sort of referenced it that because this happens to be the Marvel movie in the MCU that follows up Infinity War, like, they can't really raise the stakes from that. So there's nothing to say. Like, it's not a fault of the film. Do not get me wrong.
Mhm.
But we've come to this conclusion a lot of times where just by default, I don't think it was ever the intention or the point of Ant-Man and the Wasp to say something like bigger, other than just give you like a fun, here's your summer Marvel movie. Now that you're coming off of like the rush, the highs and lows of Infinity War.
Mhm.
So I don't think
Absolutely.
again, there's nothing like detrimental about it. It's just that I think it deserves a default 0 because I can't point to any themes and say here's what it's trying to say.
Actually, I really like that intent behind it to show. Yes, Marvel, Infinity War took itself very seriously. This one is going back to you can just shut off your brain and have fun with
Yeah.
a Marvel film, and that's necessary at times to.
They sort of need to bring it back from like
Exactly.
the darkness of that. And to be fair, they did reference it. Like they didn't like discount Infinity War. There's a stinger. Spoiler. There's a stinger like scene at the end that
Mhm.
ties into the Infinity War directly. So
But again, I'm going to give it a 0, but not from a fault of
yeah,
its own.
not because it was like somehow like bad or
well,
poorly handled.
exactly. It kind of bookends Thor. Thor was this
Hmm.
romp, and it kind of led into to Infinity War, and then you had Black Panther,
Yeah,
which was a
true.
family drama, which was funny in parts, but the ending was heavy. It was a family drama. It was heavy, and then you had Infinity War. And you had to have something you couldn't. You needed something to kind of like that. You needed something even lighter than Thor.
The cut to tension.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that worked well.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, would you like to continue on with the antagonist, if there is one?
He's a restaurant owner. I was telling Scott precast when Hope, Evangeline Lilly,
Mhm.
walked in to get this last component for the
The machine that they need to rescue
the
their
quantum
mother.
tunnel.
Yeah.
Because quantum, and she put the money down, and I'm like, well, hello, this is your villain for this
Yes.
afternoon. Here's your arms dealer. I mean, it was basically the same villain as last time, and last time, in both cases, I liked the actor. I mean, I finally just saw the Hateful Eight, so this guy,
Goggins is good. Yeah.
yeah, he is great. I thoroughly love his character. I think he's a great character actor. But by the same token, he's just like, hey, we needed a villain. Here's this guy. Again, I don't think after coming off of Black Panther, which is a complicated thing, his villain was more of an anti-hero. And then you had Thanos. It doesn't really matter. So I don't really think. I think they were just trying to get you. They needed some kind of antagonist. Because we'll get to Ghost later.
I'm getting into ghosts.
Well, yeah.
all right.
In this discussion.
Well,
So I'm going to give it a 0
okay.
because I'm counting the restaurateur as the antagonist.
Restaurateur
So-
says black market guy.
Oh,
Allow me to jump in since you had referenced it earlier. Yeah, the reason it feels like a culmination of like a 2-hour like TV series is because he's a fucking like A-team villain. He's a
Yes.
MacGyver villain. Like,
Absolutely.
essentially, right? So like that's fine, and yeah, he's a good character actor, but what the script gives him to work with is not that much. It's like the same cookie cutter template villain of that nature you've seen so many times. So there's not much to it. So like that's what I thought that was funny about it. But that's why I'm probably giving a little less credit here. And now I'll let you go on about Ghost.
I count Ghost as an antagonist because the secondary antagonist. And granted, it's a sympathetic villain. I understood her motivation throughout. I have a problem with superhero movies when they try to add too many villains because you don't give enough room for either of them
to move and breathe.
Yes, and like I did not care at all about Ghost's plotline. They tried a lot through exposition, like a heavy exposition dump in this.
Yeah,
that didn't work. Yeah, you had Lawrence Fishburne as mentor, whatever, the guy helping out.
Her, sure.
But yeah, I felt sympathetic towards her, but I don't think that necessarily made her a good villain. Although I thought that the effects around her were fascinating. And if any of you played Torment Tides in Numenera, they have a character
that's right.
with a similar...
I forgot about that. But no, like, I'm going to largely agree because on the surface, she has an interesting setup, an interesting backstory, and a tragically sympathetic one. But like, as played out, I wasn't all that invested. You're right, like, they sort of lost me. You're right, like, as well, to flesh out our backstories, like, here's 2 scenes of outright just exposition. That now you know who I am and where I'm coming from, and what my problem is and what motivations are. Yeah, that might be true, but it still doesn't flesh it out enough to me.
No,
like the effects were cool, which I'm probably shipping to style, but like I just as an actual villain, antagonistic force set against Ant-Man and Wasp and Pym, didn't really get there for me.
No, and the guy who plays the restaurateur, which is a weird thing. I can't remember. After I came out of the movie, I couldn't remember his name.
His name is Sonny something in the movie.
The actor who plays it has such charisma behind him that he
does a lot with a little.
His gravity pulled my focus for the villain there. So I have to give it a 0 overall. Unfortunately, I like them both, but this is as we put out, like a television show villain.
They did the best they could with the script gave them, but what the script gave them was essentially that. So I think it's a soft 0 maybe, but just certainly not enough for me, and looks like you as well. Yeah. What do you got, Chris?
Nothing. I'm putting Ghost. I'm going to get to Ghost with supporting characters.
Okay. But you're giving a 0 to him.
I'm giving a 0 because I'm counting, as much as I like the actor, his character was just there.
Yeah, it's pretty much kind of
the A-Team MacGyver.
That's what I'm saying.
Was a perfect analogy.
Hazard.
Yeah. Name any of those, and that's sort of the villain he was, which is fine, but that means there's not much to it. So there you go.
All right, I'm going into protagonist. So I think this is less Scott Lang's movie than it is Hope's movie.
I could see a 60-40 or something like that kind of split.
But again, he's still like he's the name on the marquee, and I think Paul Rudd does a phenomenal job with this character. I think he has a lot of fun with it. But I really thought they fleshed out Hope here
a lot more,
than they did in the past movies. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's quite an ensemble piece, but there are a lot of players, I think, in the protagonist category.
Well, it's a small team, I would say.
Hank Pym has a pretty strong character arc of being faced with his own flaws as like narcissism and leading to a lot of
from the past and coming back to bite him.
Yeah, and leading to a lot of the troubles nowadays. So overall, I think it was a fairly strong core group. Again, and that's what really carries these films. This would be a bad film if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of these actors and actresses can uplift the material.
I very much agree with that. Yeah, Paul Rudd always seems to have a lot of fun with his character, and I think they have a good dynamic. Like him, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline Lilly play off each other all really nicely in a sort of triangle dynamic, and that was fine. Like basically. Ant-Man and the Wasp become true partners, and Hank Pym is like their old man, like the guy in the chair, like he's like their tech guy, and I think that works really well when they do when they go into heist or have a battle or trying to get the MacGuffin back, as we were saying, the lab and so forth. So I think yes, there's more of Hope's story here for sure, but also it's about Scott Lang and his him getting off of house arrest and him trying to raise his daughter and
well, those are the stakes for him that I never thought you would actually fall prey to the FBI's.
Sure. I get that and all, but I think even so, overall, they all deserve pretty solid credit and pretty strong one for me.
Actually, it's really funny because when you say it's more Hope's film, a lot of things gelled. and the fact that it is more her story in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
but that even makes Paul Rudd's character, I'm blocking his name now, Scott Lang, even more of an important protagonist, because I'm going to get to this in dialogue, but he is the audience's POV at this point, because all of a sudden you know his story, and his thing is just to to not let anybody know that he is not home under house arrest.
Yes. Sure.
Which they played twice,
Yes.
and they didn't overdo it. I mean, it was something always
they
there.
cut back to it here and there, but it wasn't. Yeah.
And we all know what that's like to evade house arrest.
Yeah. So yeah. But to me, I think now his importance as a protagonist is even more so, because they're kind of like Hank and Hope are kind of in their own little personal hell, and they're kind of put everybody's needs and probably the rest of the world aside to get the mother/wife back. So it is really much more important. They live in a microcosm in a lot of ways, and but Scott's worried about his business with Luis, and he's worried about his family.
Sure.
So he's definitely more of an everyman than he was in the last film. So yeah, a very strong one now.
Also, people are just throwing quantum terms at him,
and
he gets to look like he understands what's going on, being audience surrogate.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
he does it both. He both lampshades that and calls him out. Where he's like, "Oh yeah, of course."
I'm going to get to that dialogue.
Yeah. But sure, like I think they all deserve like 1/3 of a credit each because they're their core team, and they all did a good job with it. And like I said, played off each other very well.
Okay. Oh, Scott, on to you with the supporting cast and the ex-cons.
All right, yeah. So ex-cons are probably my favorite part of the supporting cast. They were quite excellent. I was glad to see them all come back. And of course, Michael Pena, somewhat of a standout, but even his other, like the Baba Yaga guy, like the Eastern European Russian like friend, and their third partner as well. I can't remember either of their names. It doesn't really matter. Like, sorry, but they're basically they're the lone gunmen, but the ex-cons.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Like they were all nice to see them return, and of course they had like small part to play here and there throughout. And then we got Lawrence Fishburne and Bill Foster, who was one of Pym's like previous partners, or these sort of like liaisons, I guess, at S.H.I.E.L.D. And he was fine. Like I actually didn't know Lawrence Fishburne was in this film until I saw him on screen.
Either.
And like he's always got a good stage presence, like a good screen presence. And I thought it's funny because it's almost as if he had a more fleshed out character with the small time that he had than Ghost herself. Or Ava, I think
that's
was her name.
absolutely true. And that's perhaps Lawrence Fishburne's sheer
Just,
force of will.
Exactly.
Exerting.
So that's fine. And then we got like Lang's family, so like his daughter Cassie, and I guess his ex-wife and her new boyfriend or whatever were there like for a couple of scenes. And then you got the FBI guy, who was sort of like somewhat of comedic relief. I don't remember his name, like either actor's name or character, but it was funny to see him like when he cropped up here and there. He's sort of like, "I'm gonna get you, Lang. I know you're escaping somehow." But he's
Do you
like,
want to go out to?
yeah, like that like yeah, that was funny too. Like the magic thing, like maybe that's style dialogue. But all I'm saying is like overall, the entire supporting cast did a damn solid job, and especially for the ex-cons, I'm gonna give it a damn solid 1.
I'm surprised that this is a comedy movie to a certain extent.
Oh, sure.
But
certainly.
almost all the comedy is done by the supporting cast.
Mhm.
But and I said Scott Lang's ex-wife, his daughter, and her new husband, who is overly friendly.
Well, they sort of set that up in the last.
Yeah.
In the
But
first
like
one.
I know that.
But now, like you see
sort
that
of still-
dynamic, it's kind of funny. Yeah. Sure.
I think overall a lot of the humor rests there, and it worked more often than it did.
Yeah, I definitely
so I'm gonna
agree.
Give it a 1.
I've got 2 things to say about supporting because I think you covered it really well. First of all, Michael Pena in the last film, the way he can't just tell a story, he's got to go back. I was waiting.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. I was just about to slip into character.
Yeah. It would have been so meta, so perfect. Go on.
But as much as I enjoyed it in the first film, I'm glad they didn't overuse it in this film.
Yeah.
They had one scene where they allowed it to spotlight, which I thought was great. But I'm going to get to Ghost now. This is where I want to talk about Ghost, who's played by Hannah John Kamen, who, if you've ever seen the show Killjoys, and yes, I'm plugging it because it's a great show and everybody should watch it. She's also been in Black Mirror.
Okay.
But she, I have a feeling in a lot of ways she was kind of like the Winter Soldier in this one. Like, I know she's going to be in future films.
Or supposed to like sort of serve that role.
Yeah, so I feel like she was the sympathetic character. I mean, she definitely, they gave you her backstory, and you're right about the exposition dump. But I know that they're setting up for whatever team she's in later, and I think she's going to be a part of whatever phase they're in now.
Sure, that's fine, but...
But no, my whole point is, I think in this film, she was one of the people going after the MacGuffin. That's why I consider her a supporting character, because she was antagonistic, but her motivations for getting the building...
Well, Thanos had good motivations, but we still counted him
antagonist. No. What I'm saying is, in terms of... She, to me, was more of a companion piece. Everybody's going after the MacGuffin.
Yeah, I get you.
So she was more of a companion. She's more like the anti-hero to our heroes, the Pims and and Lang. Lang and the Pims.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a band.
Hatfields and McCoys.
So I felt that she was more of a contemporary. She was kind of Laura, like the anti-hero of the heroes, so to speak.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
So, and I think as much as Bucky is kind of like the anti-hero who was set up in Winter Soldier, he was set up as the villain, but really the villain actually turned out to be the
Robert Redford.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I felt that it was more to establish her character, and I thought she was a really good supporting character. I thought, like I said, she was more of a companion. She was more of a contrast to the. So I don't consider her a villain at all. Again, I always enjoy her performance. I'm a fan of the actress, but that aside, I thought they did a good job of giving her some pathos. And they definitely left a lot of room for her to there's much more you can learn about her.
As long as they also have a giant Lawrence Fishburne, because Bill Foster's Goliath.
Which is a reference to the comics that you told me you have about.
So I just want to see 65-foot.
I think Lawrence Fishburne got a whiff of like DC's plans. They're like, nope, find yourself a new Perry White. I'm leaving. Enough of this bullshit.
Fair enough. So you're giving it a 1 then, Chris?
Yeah, I'm definitely giving a 1.
Okay. Well, I do like your, just to close off, like, interesting thoughts and theory on, like you said, on shipping Ghost to secondary, but I totally see what you mean, and I can see, like, why they might have done it that way in order to set her up for more screen time and more fleshing her up more later, so.
If this is the season finale for a series, it's like, hey, guess who's going to be up next season?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Chris, on to you with dialogue.
Okay. I'm a big science fiction fan, as everybody knows, and Star Trek especially. And Star Trek, especially starting with The Next Generation, not so much in Deep Space Nine, a lot in Voyager, is technobabble, 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 and when in doubt, throw quantum in it. Mm-hmm. So
which they did.
So Hope and Hank are going technobabble, quantum, technobabble, quantum, technobabble, quantum, technobabble, and then like Scott's like, do you people just throw quantum in front of everything? I'm like, I don't care if there's never another good line in this film. That hit on all thrusters in my last 30 years of existence. I'm totally giving this a 1 because I thought that was such an amazing. I thought that was.
It's a lampshade slasher. It's both in and without character. Yeah.
It is. And I was just so thrilled because I'm listening to the two of them and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm watching fucking Voyager. And then when he said that, I'm like, oh, awesome. All right, let's call this bullshit out.
Sure.
So, no, I thoroughly, definitely it was one of those things where I think I agree with Ian. The actors elevated the material, especially Michael Pena. No, Paul Rudd does a great job. And they gave Hank some really good lines. I was really thrilled to death by the technobabble quantum thing, but to me it shows the self-awareness. Sure. I mean, aside from the fact that I got it on multiple levels, it definitely does show a self-awareness for itself and for the genre. And again, it comes back to my show, what you were saying about him being a protagonist, and if it's more a hope story, then he's got to be the everyman. And these people are so wrapped inside their own heads and their own motivations and their own technology. Having him there was really important, and I think his dialogue was really important. And of course, all the banter between him and the FBI guy, I have to give it a 1. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but that one line, that one scene
sealed it for you.
Just sealed it for me. I just thought that was phenomenal.
Sure.
So I'm going to analyze this through genre.
All
As
right.
a comedy, I thought that, and I think it hit more than it missed.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
I don't think it's the funniest movie I've seen recently, but I thought it did its job fairly well. As an action adventure, whether you're going into the science fiction as you just did, or simply the kind of national treasure
sort of thing. Yeah.
It could have gone. It held its own in a lot of those categories, and I think that we don't. Oftentimes, great dialogue doesn't come from these genres.
These types of things. Yeah.
And when it does, it sticks around. I think that it did its job well enough. It had its moments, and I never recoiled at any dialogue. Maybe a little bit of exposition dumps here or there, but they were rare. So for the most part, I'm going to give it a soft 1, but a 1 nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm going with a solid 1. So before I go on, I'm sorry, we were just a character we actually forgot to mention briefly is Michelle Pfeiffer as Jane, his wife, Hank's wife, which she was there briefly. And on the time she had was fine. So I just wanted to address that, just get that out there. But dialogue style, I pretty much agree with what you just said, E, more or less, that it was perfectly fine throughout. There was a lot of bits that landed versus maybe a few and far between that I was like, that was fine, but it was never cringeworthy per se. Never just I'm just like, that one was okay. Next one, hey, you know what? That was pretty good. And yeah, like we said, the 2 exposition jumps, 2 or 3, were basically attached to Ghost, so we covered that. But yeah, definitely, like you said, the quantum thing, that was really funny. They called them out on that. And some of the other stuff too, again, not Michael Pena's just flashback, rapid fire, retelling, but his trying to struggle at being the boss of the ex-cons, when he's trying, when they're all sitting around the office interacting, that was a good little bit, right? And when MacGyver villain Sonny comes up to interrogate them to figure out where Scott Lang is, they have a whole scene where the one group of henchmen versus them, that was a pretty good, the True Serum thing was solid.
That was, True Serum.
Yeah,
that was a good bit. All that stuff. So yeah, throughout it was perfectly, it carried me through, and it's light and breezy for the most part, but sort of serious when it had to be. So yeah, I'll give it a solid 1 throughout.
Okay, on to me with style. So, again, looking at genre-wise, as you mentioned, it's a good science fiction film. They do all those kind of tropes well. I think it was a good action-adventure piece. Not the most in-depth as we covered, but it still did its business for making a
solid,
fun movie. Now, the premise is make things big, make them small. Does it continue to work in this? I say it does. And that's where the style rests. They came up with some clever...
Exactly. Sequences and set pieces.
The different cars, the car chases. I happen to like car chases quite a bit. I thought there was not transporter, not anything like that, but it was still some good
I get you.
Action set pieces. I don't know. Overall, I'm going to give it a 1 because the first time I saw the original Ant-Man, I had no expectations for it whatsoever, and it pleasantly surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
This one I had middling expectations for, and
it reached and went above those.
So I'm going to give it as a sequel. It's pretty good. So I'm going to give it a 1.
Yeah, so I mostly agree. So I was waiting to for this one to talk about some of the things I liked. Yeah, you're right. I absolutely agree. This on the sci-fi end, for example, the quantum world thing, going shrinking down subatomic and how that looked. And I mentioned that one in the first MN review. And the car stuff was cool too. Of course, the building and the cars getting bigger and smaller. But one of the things I liked is when Scotty Lang's suit is malfunctioning, and they're on they have to go to his daughter's school to grab another sub MacGuffin essentially, and because it's malfunctioning, he gets stuck kid sized. So they have to sneak around wear kids' clothes. He's 3.5 feet high, going around but he's an adult male, just that size. So that was a funny bit. So I thought that was really well done. And Wasp was shrinking down and flying around. And you mentioned ghosts, sort of the phase effects.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So that was all perfectly fine. So yeah, I can't really fault it. And when he gets really big, in the the harbor set piece as well, all that stuff was great. Yeah, it was a perfectly fine blend of sci-fi-ish / action style, and I got to give it a lot of credit. So
yeah, I was gonna, the ghost thing was especially good because the way they did it wasn't just fading, but you could just see.
Yeah, it was he was in
different times, which I thought was great.
You're right. That's a torment thing you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I always have to say this because growing up watching all the kaiju movies, the Ant-Man suit that they have for this always looks like Jet Jaguar or like Ultraman or something.
Sure.
So him coming out of the thing, every time he's large, I think it's great. So him when he came out of the ocean like that, like that just warmed my heart. I was just like, okay, these people know their genre.
Sure.
But again, they made such good use of the premise. Like car chases to me are either great or they're car chases, or no, seriously. I mean, because very few of them stand out, and usually I'm like, all right, enough of the fucking car chases.
Because you've seen so many of them.
Yeah,
like,
but
that's the
they
thing.
they continue to do interesting things, and it was the pacing of it. It was the timing of it. It wasn't like they just did it.
I agree.
Like there were setups, like with the Switchback Road. You saw it. I mean, everything had a setup and a payoff, and a setup and a payoff.
Oh,
and
the Pez dispenser that
they
set that up,
Yep.
and then
yeah, which you saw in the trailer.
But even so, it still was fine in the film, like the way that, because you actually get to see the setup of it, like previously.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna give it a strong one. Again, they just made really good use of what they had.
Yeah, agree. They took the premise, and like you said, we did a lot of cool,
They
clever
didn't,
stuff
they
with
didn't
it.
try to double down on it and
Yeah.
say like, oh, let's see what else we could do interesting. It's like, no, we got this premise. We've
Oh,
established
another
it.
thing. Oh, sorry, I just thought of it. All the ants, like the actual ants.
Oh, that's what I meant to
it was
bring
pretty
up.
good. Yeah.
But that's the other thing I was thinking of. When he's going after the boat and he's trying to get ants to come and the seagulls keep eating the
Yes,
ants.
that was a very good bit. I'm glad you remember that
I'm
because
gonna
I
name
enjoyed
you
that too.
Antonio Banderas. Whoa!
Antonio.
Antonio.
Because you're a badass, yeah. So like, yeah, you're right. That was really funny. That got me. That was solid. Because a good call remembering that one.
Yeah, so that was like the one new little gag.
Yeah.
Say, but again, they kept it within the world. I was very, very happy that they didn't try to be like, oh, what can we do to amaze people? It's like, no, let's just do what we have and do it really well.
and do it fucking solid. And I think they did. So I think
Okay.
that shows.
Scott, recommendation.
Yeah, I would recommend Ant-Man. Would I be like, it's you got to see this movie this summer? Like, no, but it's fucking solid. We're gonna give it a pretty good score. It looks like about to be. So yeah, it's like you said, the first one you weren't sure quite to expect, but this one, after the first one came out to be looking pretty solid, like afterwards, this one followed through, was a really good sequel. It's pretty much everything you sort of wanted, or at least I wanted out of it. And like as we just laid out, they did a lot of the setting up what they did in the first one, and if not bigger and better, again, is like another pun, but certainly like more of it in a sort of creative way, and it didn't get stale, it didn't get flat, and they set up a bunch of other stuff, and like we just said, all the characters were damn well fleshed out, except for the ones that weren't, but we pointed that out.
And the safer, well, definitely safer the first.
Yes,
because
the Stingers as well, yeah.
The Stingers, because we catch up with Infinity War.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty badass. Like, I have
And
to
they
admit.
did it really well.
Yeah.
They did it really well.
Yeah, so that was solid. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's worth it. Marvel has been chugging along very, very nicely, and this one is no exception. And as we said, it's a nice little sort of stopgap, or at least a sort of lighthearted breather now coming off the heaviness of Infinity War, and it's definitely worth it.
Was it movie worthy going out to the? Sure, because Marvel's about spectacle.
Exactly.
But it's just a lighthearted. I would even say slightly above a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's just a fun kind of turn your brain off and enjoy a ride.
Exactly.
But it also has heart.
It does. I think
it's got
Scott Lang's daughter is very adorable, and
I can definitely tolerate her as a child actor, so that's saying a lot of
high praise from Scott.
Exactly.
But like, when you're talking about heart, she's that core.
Yeah, and you're right. I agree.
Overall, it gets my full recommendation on this.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. If you hadn't gotten it till now, the movie does have a lot of heart. It never really gets maudlin. It never gets over the top, which would have been, again, like overdoing the make things get big, make things get small.
Exactly.
Could have been really easy to get to start throwing on sap on this thing. It was super enjoyable. I would say it is definitely above a popcorn movie. It was very character driven, which most of these Marvel movies are.
And when there's firing on all cylinders, is going to be pretty goddamn solid, as we just said.
Okay, Chris.
I got the scores actually. Well, I'll tell you what we each gave it. So, Chris, you gave it the highest, of course, with an 8, and Ian, you and me gave it 7s, which I believe comes out to a 7.3, but I might Are you
I
wrong?
believe it's 7.3 as well. If I did the math in my
I
head.
think it's correct.
I did the math wrong. I'm sorry.
Chris has a fucking calculator here,
I have-
folks.
It's a
I-
7.3.
I did the math wrong.
It's 22 divided by 3, and that I believe
22
is
divided by 3.
7.3.
Oh, I can't do math.
Sorry, I'm Scotty Lang. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe we're right though. So yeah,
Fair
7.3. It's better than average. Pretty fucking solid, but not stellar. But certainly worth again a fun, nice, enjoyable romp and a very nice entry in the phase 3 I believe we're into of MCU. Sure.
Whatever. It's they're like Ghost. It's phasing in and out.
Yeah. But
Alright.
either way,
I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, and in reality, I'm very big. Here with Chris Morgan
And Quantum.
and Scott Thurlow.
Quantum Void. That's where I'll be. See you next time. Good night.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?